The Strange Case of Dr. RX. This is my day 8 of 31 in my 31 Days of Horror. I watched it on this Blu-ray, and here's Lionel Atwill. If you look at the back of here, there's a little special feature on there. Do you see it? The Lionel Atwill one by here. That was actually really great, learning about his life. Turns out he's not too far distance from the characters that he plays in these movies. I mean, he doesn't do brain transplants, but he definitely has some dark habits that caught up to him. So at this point, I am a huge fan of Lionel Atwill, this gentleman here, who ended up looking like the basement stapler guy from Office Space. So I don't know how this movie made it into the horror collection, I guess because it has murders in it, and there's mention of a brain transplant, but really it ends up just kind of being like a murder mystery, like a police show. So this is from 1942, and I'm going to review this thing, go over some stuff I liked, some stuff I noticed, and talk about it. Also, thanks for joining me on here. This is kind of in lieu of me watching movies alone. When we watch it together and we talk about it together, that's nice. So I appreciate you watching. This movie actually starts in a really interesting place. This is one thing I really liked about this movie.
Millionaire sportsman Grayson Carter is the 5th victim in a chain of murder.
So one thing I really like about the structure of this movie is when it starts, there's already been 5 murders. So you're just getting right into it. It's like, whoa, what's going on? There's a murder on the loose. Like, you almost just feel the tension right away. So I thought that was a genius move. And I mean, it is fun to start from 1 and count up, but this is cool where there's already been 5 murders. Also, let me know what you think of this microphone and my ET shirt, by the way. This is the first time me using this, so let me know what you think. Anyway, I love where this movie starts. Boop. Okay, I don't know if I'll be able to pick this up on camera, but out of all these old horror movies that I've watched so far, this one has had some of the most interesting print damage, right? So there's a film print that they then scan, and then it goes onto the Blu-ray. But usually there's like dirt specks and scratches, like vertical lines or sometimes diagonal lines. But this movie had what appeared to be chemical damage. So there's just like, it's almost like you just stuck the film in a liquid, and then they just took it right out of the liquid, and then maybe the liquid had some like stuff in it, and then they let it dry, and so there's all these little like blobby circles all over it, mostly on the sides, but they're just going by. Like, for a minute I thought this guy's set, like the set that this radio guy's on, was doing like some like disco ball thing, but it's these like blobby like wet marks on the film. So I think it's actually chemical damage, and I think it's the first time I've ever seen that on a movie ever. So I have no idea what it is with this, or what it looked like before they scanned it, like if this is the best version we'll ever have of this. But this Blu-ray, like, that is some crazy chemical damage. Let's see if we can catch some of it. You'll see it on the sides, and it just looks like a bunch of little blobby circles moving around.
More fantastic than any to be found in police
See if it shows any.
A chain of murders perpetrated by the mysterious self-appointed...
Yeah, it's kind of flying by right here.
Known only as Dr. RX.
Yeah, no.
The prerogative of making...
They don't really show up, but it's some crazy looking film damage, and honestly, it was really distracting. But also, it was like a novelty, so I was like, ooh, look, chemical damage. But yeah, it kind of distracted from the movie. All right, you could definitely see the chemical damage on this part. But I wanted to highlight this guy. He did an awesome job. He was totally the comic relief. He's like the helper, at the time. This is 1942, by the way. The helper for the main inspector guy. And when he forgets something, he like associates things and then gets himself back to remembering it. And obviously I didn't know that at this point in the movie. So when he does this line here, I was just like, what the heck?
Meet me, Newark Airport, 8:10 tomorrow morning. Tell no
See the
one
little
of my
film spots?
church,
Okay, listen to him.
airport, airplanes, clouds, birds, nests, eggs, breakfast.
And then he turns off the light and it's a scene change. And the next scene is him waking up in bed having forgot to go to the airport to pick him up. But Yeah, he does that throughout the movie. These weird like associations to remember stuff. Let me know if you can see those little circles I was talking about, the little chemical blobby circles. I'm not sure if they show up on here. I will say everybody in this movie has awesome, slick, cool, perfect hair. Look at that thing, shellacked. So it's not till 16 minutes in the movie that we actually see Lionel Atwill. And look at this little subtle smile on his face.
Have you
Awesome.
reached a verdict?
Okay, so the plot of this movie actually ended up being quite twisty-turny. The poster is Lionel Atwill, and you just assume he's going to be a killer, because he's always the killer. But spoiler alert, he's not. It's somebody else. And so by the time you get to the end of the movie and you see that it's not him, you almost want to watch the movie all over again just to see if there's any signs whatsoever. And I think I found one looking at this scene again. So this is the courtroom scene. So the killer pretty much kills people that the court is lenient with. Then he decides that they need to be brought to justice. And it's all like strangulation, but it ends up being that they're getting like shot with like a little pen dart, basically. And so what I wanted to see, kind of looking at the movie again in certain scenes, is to see if there's any evidence whatsoever of the pen dart being used. And I think this happens off screen, but when it cuts back to the actual killer, it looks like he's putting the pen back in his jacket. So we didn't see the pen come out, we didn't see him use it, but he's putting it back in his jacket after the verdict of not guilty is read. And then he has like this smug look on his face, and it's like, you dog, you killed him right there. So check this out.
Order. Order in this courtroom.
See that? You'll blink and miss it. So you got Lionel Atwill back here with his big crazy glasses, and then you have the actual killer here, spoiler alert. And I think in that last scene that I showed you, when he's putting his hand in his jacket, I think he just shot him with the pen thing and just put it back. And then for the rest of the scene, he has this smug look, but he's also looking at him very carefully because it's supposed to be about a 20-second timer till they die. So this is towards the end of the movie, and it's our first glimpse of Dr. RX. And he's got like a hood on, and he's speaking in what sounds like a Cobra Commander voice from G.I. Joe. You got a guy in a ape costume. Listen to his voice.
Get impatient. It is customary, I believe, for the surgeon and patient to have a little talk before an operation. Perhaps there are some questions you would like to ask. Perhaps.
Doesn't that sound? I think it sounds like Cobra Commander from G.I. Joe. Anyway, so the idea is that they're gonna scare him so bad that his hair turns white and he's gonna be a bumbling idiot, or they're gonna do a brain transfer or whatever. But everyone keeps trying to get him off the case. But ironically, the person who's been trying to keep him on the case the whole time is the actual killer, which is a really cool twist. So I like this movie. I thought it had kind of fun twists and turns. A lot of these movies are really feeling like B movies. I haven't looked up to see if they actually are B movies of the time. And my wife was like, "Are these B movies that you're watching?" And I'm like, "Yeah, they might be. They feel like it." So they find out something's wrong with the guy. She breaks in the door, sees him, and passes out. And the reason this is actually terrifying is because she had met someone earlier that was on the case, that something happened to them, their hair went white, they get passed out, and then they're like a bumbling idiot for the rest of their lives. So there he is in bed with his white hair, so he's freaked out. And I was sitting there watching this movie, and I was like, oh no, because this guy, boop, he just got married to that girl. And she's like begging him to quit the case because he's getting threatened, right? And so I'm like, it ends like this, and I'm like, oh no, he got a brain transplant. I seriously thought it was going to have this horrible, not happy ending. But they're totally faking it. It's like this big twist to catch the actual guy. But they didn't tell her they were faking it, so they freaked her out. So then they pull off this ruse where they bring in this guy to examine the patient because they're like, oh, you're good with mental stuff. And he walks in all slow, and this guy's looking all nervous, but he doesn't really have any reason to yet. And then he has to write a note. And he's like, does anyone have a pen or a pencil? And then conveniently, no one in the room has one. And so he's got one on his vest, and he's like, hey, can I borrow that? And then he gets super shifty, and then this is what happens.
Shoot him. Stop him!
Oh, got himself. So anyway, we just like there's scenes of this guy like following him in the car, and you're like, oh, he's so scary, but it's totally like he's like his partner, and so it was a really cool twist to where they kept that knowledge from us the whole time, and actually he kept it from all of his friends the whole time. But anyway, then it ends up being this other guy who actually paid him to be on the case. So it was a pretty cool twist. I was actually impressed. Like, not to put down like the writing or the filmmaking at the time, but again, these feel like B movies, and they have really silly and sometimes bad humor, and it's not restored very well. So you just kind of think you're not going to get as good of a product. But I liked it. Had a good twist. It was fun. So again, uh, this has been day 8 of 31 in my 31 days of horror. So if you like this kind of thing, stick with me, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.